Hey there, horror movie tea sippers.
The following podcast episode will contain spoilers for the movie we are about to review. If you have not seen the movie and do not wish to have anything ruined prematurely, please do not continue to watch or listen until you have seen the movie.
And welcome to the Horror Movie Tea Podcast. First week of Asian Horror Month, you guys. We are so excited.
Welcome to August.
Yes. Yeah, Asian Horror Month is, well, to be fair, I love all of our theme months, but I don't know.
Especially Asian Horror Month and Halloween.
It has a special place in our heart.
Yes.
So today we are covering Ju-on 2, which we covered Ju-on 1, like the original Japanese. It was episode 9, guys.
So
we are now in the
long ago.
70s. So crazy.
So long ago.
And I could have sworn we had started off that episode with Asian Horror Month, but I don't think we did.
I don't think so at that point.
But we are now starting a tradition. Just like with Jaws being the first movie for Shark Month, it just seems so appropriate for Ju-on to be the first movie for Asian Horror Month, since it's so iconic. But before we get to the summary, what tea are you drinking again?
So I needed a double shot. It's a long day of recording and stuff, so I am drinking the same tea. It's Zest Tea's Blue Lady, the highest caffeine content.
135 milligrams. Worth it. So,
give me that caffeine.
And I am drinking the Tazo Matcha Mate Grapefruit. That's weird. There's a Matcha Mate Grapefruit. Why wouldn't they just call it Matcha Grapefruit?
Because it's a different kind of matcha.
Matcha Mate. Is that really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like yerba mate.
Oh.
It's probably in the processing.
Gotcha.
Just the style.
It's hot.
It is very hot. I burnt my tongue a little bit.
Aww.
This is fine. I just need the caffeine in my bloodstream.
The risk of being a tea drinker.
Yeah. The things we do for this podcast.
Yes. So, Ju-on 2. So, as a caveat, this is very disjointed, just like the original Ju-on. But the storyline that eventually gets pieced together is this movie director is like, oh, this murder happened at this house. All of these people that have gone into the house have died. Let's film a movie about it. So inside the house.
He actually stated those that have lived there have died. So I don't think he knew that a lot of the people that visited there died as well.
That's true. And there wouldn't be a way to track that.
Not really.
Yeah, that's fair. But
he only has the records of those that have lived there.
Yes. So they're filming the movie, and no surprise, the people start dying one by one. And the main character...
Or disappearing.
Yes. I forgot her first name, but her last name is Harase?
Kyoko.
I should have remembered that. At least someone's paying attention. But
Senpai noticed me.
But she goes through this pregnancy that it's like Kyoko tries to kill her in a car crash, but then she lives, and then her fetus becomes Kyoko, and Kyoko grows up and like pushes Kyoko off the stairs. It's a weird, convoluted story.
It's really twisted and odd, and it's kind of difficult to understand.
Yeah. But that's the summary. So, for entertainment, so for me personally, I kind of like this. It's very difficult for me because I think the overarching story for the original Ju-on is a lot stronger than this one. However, the way that they piece together the story for this movie and the scares, there's a lot more creepy scares. So for me, I would rate it a 6.5. it has the same problems that a lot of Ju-on or the Grudge movies have, where you'll get really good bone-chilling scares, but then you'll get some scares that you just burst out laughing because they're so stupid. Like, there's no in between. It's either it will make you creeped out or you will just laugh.
Yes.
It's just, yeah.
That is very, very true. There is like no in between.
Yeah, but like some examples of great kills is like Tomika and Nori one where they're like hanging. It's like that one's so good. I love Japanese stories like that where they are hearing like signs and predictions of their own death, but they don't realize it until it's too late. It's just so cool. Where it's like she's hearing thumping in the night and she's like, what is that? And then she comes home and she sees like a body hanging behind the curtain. She looks away and then the body's gone when she looks back. And then she finds out it's her boyfriend that's hanging. But then it ends up being her too. And it's just, so many little details.
And knocking over the teacup.
Yes. Oh, that one. Oof. But another scene that really gives me chills is when the director is rewatching the footage that they took.
That he's dozing in.
Yes. So all of this stuff is happening in the footage.
And he's missing all of it.
And you're like, oh my God, that's so creepy. And he didn't see any of it.
Well, and he didn't, once he woke up, it kills me that he didn't like back it up and try to rewatch it or re-listen to it. Because he was saying, I'll take a look at it. Because they heard a discrepancy in the sound when they were initially filming. That's why he was in there to review it.
Yeah.
But if you say you're going to review it, don't just sleep through it all and not rewatch it or retry to review it.
Yeah.
Don't.
And
lazy.
Yes. And then another story arc, which is really good, is the Chiharu one, where it's kind of a callback to some of the girls in the original movie, but essentially she goes into the house. Kayako is coming down the stairs to get her, but she keeps going back and forth between like time skips. So it's like she will be out of the house and then suddenly back in the house. Mm-hmm. And like I feel bad for her. She went like a really bad way just because she was tortured for, I mean, at least a couple of days.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but when she realized what was happening and that she wasn't going to escape it, she tried to save her friend.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
That was kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah, but, that one's really good. And another thing that I always find fascinating with Japanese horror, but, mainly the Grudge series, is typically whenever one of the characters dies, they suffer in a way that the original people that were murdered in the house suffered. Like, mm-hmm. For example, I forgot her name. I should have known it. But the the makeup artist, she...
Megumi.
Oh, yeah. I should have known the name.
You really should have remembered that one.
Yeah, I should have.
I am disappointed.
But Kayako is coming towards her, and she's on the floor, and she's scratching the floor. And then all of a sudden you see a clip of Kayako in the bag after her husband attacked her, and she's scratching the floor. So it's kind of cool how it relates. And
it reminds you also that she had seen those markings previously. Yes. So it's kind of nice that they do a recall like that.
Mm-hmm. And then the way that they connect the stories, where for the Tomika and Nori, later you hear Tomika calling him, and it's the exact same phone call that took place during their story. And just like little things like that, so you understand where in the timeline they fit in. And from what I gather, the majority of the people tended to die around the same time. Mm-hmm. It's neat how they connect everything, that it doesn't forget it for some of the silly scares that they put in there, but the good scares are great.
So I give it a 6. I don't quite remember what I gave the previous one. We
tried finding it and we could not.
Yeah, I've slept since then, and we didn't have time to review the full podcast episode to figure it out. But I give this one a 6. And I do like a lot of the scares. They're very, very subtle. They don't use loud noises or music to draw attention to it. It's just there. And there are some that, if you're not paying attention, you will miss them.
Yeah.
So I really like those, though. Those tend to make it a lot more creepy and really add to the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
Then there are the others that I don't know if it's a cultural thing or if it's just the budget they had. Like if they were just doing the best they could with what they got. Some of the effects did feel a little bit dated.
Yeah, this movie came out in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
I think it was right before the American Grudge, I want to say.
Fair. It still felt a little bit older than that. But again, it could just be a cultural thing. And they were, again, it could have also been the budget. So they were probably doing the best they could with what they had.
Yeah, it's like, it really looks like a 90s film.
A little bit.
But yeah, it came out in the early 2000s. But I also, it's like they probably had older equipment. And I also noticed that unless if it's a super high budget film, the Asian films tend to look more dated. And I don't know if it's just because of the access to... No, it must be like a budgetary thing.
That's what I would imagine. A lot of the scares are subtle and good, but the ones that are very, very obvious are just the ones that you will bust a gut laughing. So I was rather confused often in this movie as to the timeline and where we were at exactly. And I feel like the ending leaves a little bit for interpretation. It was kind of confusing there too. But it does a better job of connecting everyone to a specific event than the first movie does. And I do appreciate that.
I feel like it kind of starts off more confusing than the first one, but then it just connects it better at the end. At least for me, both times I was left kind of confused. And especially with Kayoko, they had her skip around a lot before they started introducing other storylines, and that was kind of confusing.
Well, she was like a big part of the story.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like hers was the most confusing because she was like the start of it and the end of it.
Yeah.
So there was this thing about her pregnancy. Like, is she still pregnant, or did she actually miscarry like they kind of inferred in the car accident? Or, like, is she having another one? Like, what's going on? So, the way I'm guessing it happened was she was pregnant and was about to have a baby, but she miscarried and then, or, like, almost miscarried, and then they kind of invaded.
Ugh.
I guess. I don't know. It's really weird. Like, it's very confusing, and I'm not entirely sure what happened there. Also, the doctors and nurses did not deserve that.
I know.
So it was odd. It's very odd. But there were some scenes that were very, very worth the watch. Yeah. So it's not my favorite one, but I did like it better than the first one, and it's definitely worth a watch.
Yeah, and specifically for the main character arc, you just... don't ask questions, because it's like
it's just so twisted.
It's like you just have to sit back and watch it and enjoy the ride, because it's not going to make any sense whatsoever.
That whole storyline is a WTF.
Yeah.
So all the other side stories though are really good and interesting. A couple of the death scenes are weird, but for the most part they do a pretty decent job with those.
Yeah.
And especially with connecting them. So I did appreciate that. But that's pretty much all I had on the entertainment scale. I did like the echoes back in time for some of those.
Mm-hmm. It's like, it's trippy once you understand how it all fits together. But then while you're going through what the characters are going through, it is kind of creepy. Like the thumping. And you had even mentioned, you're like, neighbors? But then the guy had even mentioned, it's like, aren't we a corner apartment? And they're like, yes.
Yeah.
So it's like, there should be no reason why there's thumping on that wall.
Yes.
So I thought that's cool. But Well, since we have said everything that we wanted to on entertainment, we're going to move forward to realism. This one was tough for me because I think a part of the reason why I struggled with the realism is it's hard to pick out what's actually realistic versus what is a cultural difference. Like, for example, whenever Kayoko's mother dies, Kayoko is very soft-spoken, and she's shaking her mother and just repeating her name, and just kind of it's like
She becomes almost childlike.
yeah. And I mean, I do know that I don't know about other Asian cultures, but I know in Japan specifically, they do tend to raise the pitch of their voice if you identify as female, because it's just seen as a more feminine quality. And I mean, there's some European countries, I think, that actually do that too. So it's not like isolated to Japan. So I don't know if it's a part of that, like, I need to be feminine, so this is how I'm going to act, or if she was genuinely, if that's how she would react genuinely if she wasn't trying to put on that, like, feminine, like, portrayal, I guess is the best way to put it. So there are some times in the movie that kind of were a little, at least to me, a little bit different on what I wouldn't normally imagine a person to react. But then there's some scenes that I thought were pretty obvious, despite the cultural differences on whether or not it's realistic. And that would be like the reactions to the scary stuff. So I would rate this movie a 3. The main reason is some of the scream reactions, where it's like, instead of them, the actresses and actors, portraying actual, like, fear, it just seems like they're just doing a face warp and then they're screaming. Yeah. Like, they're not actually portraying fear.
It's like the director goes, "Give me your best scream."
Yeah, exactly.
Just, I know you're not scared. Give me your best scream.
Yes. And then another point that I was like, what? This doesn't make sense, is when Kayako is a little girl and she pushes Kayoko down the stairs. Well, whenever it pans, Kayoko is perfectly laying at the bottom of the stairs. And I'm like, well, with the angle of the stairs, I would imagine her either stopping near the top or somewhere in the middle. I can't imagine a little girl being able to push her all the way. Like, she would have had to, like, flip. And
it does depend on how she landed the first couple of times, because she would probably have rolled. But they're oftentimes in those areas with that kind of walkway bridge, there is like a middle area that has like a landing.
I think I did see like a little bit of a landing.
Yeah. So I'm
you have at least fallen there.
Yeah. Kind of confused why she didn't just.
And the fact that she landed so perfectly, where she's like facing up and her head is like so daintily laying to the side. Like,
but she used her spirit strength.
But it's also, I understand that Ju-on, number one, is a horror movie, but it's a very artful film too. So it could have just been the director's choice on, I think this looks the most beautiful, rather than going towards, realistic. Yeah. But yeah, that's all I got for the realism, though. It's just some of the kills are unrealistic. The screams are definitely whenever they die, those are some of the least realistic parts of the movie.
I believe a 3 is a fair rating, and we're just going to continue the tradition over the last few episodes and have the same rating for realism. This is odd, but whatever.
I know, normally you're so much stricter than I am.
I usually am, but you've given a fair assessment the last couple of times, and I agree, so we're going to have the same one.
I wasn't giving a fair assessment before.
I feel like I've converted you to the dark side, so... But it's fine. Join us, we have cookies. So, with the stairs, that is pretty accurate. I feel like she would have landed on the middle somewhere instead of at the bottom. I also feel like, though, if she had landed in the middle, it's far less likely that she would have died from it. Knocked out, most likely. Concussed, probably. but not necessarily dead.
Yeah, that's true.
At the bottom of it, again, it does depend on how she landed. It does look like there was a lot of blood, so she had to have hit like the corner of the stairs
Ouch.
with her head in just the right way,
Ooh.
which is fairly unlikely, I feel like, but stranger things have happened, and there are people all the time, all across the world, that have fallen down the stairs in their own home and died
Yeah.
in a freak thing.
Well, and then
So-
also, I don't think it's, I mean, of course, hitting your head, that will kill you. But also, if you, while you're falling, if you're twisting your neck
Yes.
in just the right way, that could also, like, if you're damaging your
Well,
nerve
if
and
you hit
spine.
your neck at just the right angle on a corner of the
Yeah.
stairs like that, you're gone. Like, it's such an odd thing. The human body is such a weird thing because either you survive this obscene thing that happened to you, like skydiving. People have skydived and their parachute has failed or not opened at all, and they'll hit the ground with like nothing breaking their fall and survive.
Yeah, there's a story of like this girl that survived a plane crash. Like the plane fell apart in the air. She fell like 40 or 50,000 feet.
Yes.
And because some trees and it is over the rainforest, and because she was slightly cushioned by some trees,
Yeah.
she survived
Yeah.
while everyone else died.
Well, I've seen videos of people like legit hitting the ground with like nothing breaking their fall and they lived. So either you have God mode or you trip over your own feet or air and hit the coffee table and die.
Yeah,
There is no in between.
it definitely feels like that.
You roll a 20 or you roll a 1. There is no in between. So, you know, stuff happens. I don't feel like it was that accurate for the director to not go back and review it ever. I can see maybe like I'm too tired to do it tonight. I'm just going to put it off. Maybe I'll come back tomorrow morning or whatever, try again with fresh eyes after I've gotten some rest. That would make sense. But never going back, that would be a huge issue in editing and would throw off your whole episode because they were doing a TV show. So I feel like it's not very accurate for him to never come back and review it.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe he just died too soon before.
He had a few days.
Yeah,
Because he said he was trying to get a hold of other people too. But
who knows? Maybe he's more concerned about those people. It's hard to say.
yeah, but he wouldn't have known for at least several hours that they were even missing. So it just doesn't make that much sense to me. And I have questions about the hanging thing. As awesome as it was, hilarious as the actual death scene was, you had a valid question when we were watching it. When the police walked in, was it hair that they were hanging by, or were they ropes? And if there were ropes, then how did they get there?
Yeah, because I know for some Asian horror, and I think they've alluded a little to this in Ju-on, is sometimes whenever they die, they kind of kill themselves, but then they just see it as a different entity. So it's possible that maybe they actually strung up the ropes and they did it themselves, but they're seeing it as Kayako, like they're possessed by her.
But if they did commit suicide themselves, there would have been something nearby that they could have stepped off of
The table.
or kicked. The table was too low because they were well above the table
That's
when they were
true.
swinging.
And that's how they knocked over the...
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's nothing there for them to step off of
That's very true.
or kick off, like a chair or anything. They didn't have that kind of table set up. It's one that you sit at on the ground. It's Japan. So it didn't make sense. So in that kind of situation, if the police come in, yes, initially it looks like a suicide, but if there's nothing for them to step off of or kick off of, then it's odd circumstances and it reeks of foul play.
Yeah, this is true.
Because you can't just off yourself with no way of doing that.
Yeah.
So
You got me. But yeah, that is...
so it should have been ruled as murder, homicide.
Yeah, so that's something that I randomly thought of towards the end. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah. So now, if they had even just like one chair, then it would have been okay. They could have ruled it as like a homicide suicide.
Or a double suicide. Like if they
Assisted
both-
suicide?
Yeah.
Yeah, potentially.
Like if they both jumped off.
No, like one chair in front of one of them.
Oh,
Because then one could have helped the other
and
and
gotcha.
then done it. So it would
Gotcha.
either be assisted suicide or homicide, and then they off themselves.
Oh, this conversation turned dark.
I have questions. I have questions because there's no consistency in it. And they don't explain it. It makes me mad.
Yeah, it's like the Ju-on movies, you just have to sit back. I mean,
That's not how anything works.
the later ones get so bad.
Oh, God.
Like, I can't wait for you to see The Grudge 2. That movie is so bad.
all the concerns.
You're gonna laugh.
I have all the concerns. Though I feel like The Grudge 2020 was not that good.
Yeah, and I mean, we won't touch too much since we've covered it before, but I feel like it missed a lot of the point of the original Ju-on.
It did.
It's just like, oh, let's just make it a scary movie versus having all of this underlying meaning
Yeah,
of like
there's a
tragedy and a cycle of suffering and yeah.
Yeah. So, as disjointed as this movie series is, there is a reason. There's a method behind it. It just... What makes it so scary most of the time is there's no way to stop it.
Yeah.
I mean, at least in most American horror movies with, like, ghosts and things, there is usually a reason behind it, but there's also a way to stop it. Or to get away from it. With this, there is no getting away from it.
Yeah. And I think going a little bit on a deeper level, I think it's a good representation of like our fear of death. It's something that all of us will have to encounter and we can never escape it. And it's just this cycle of life. And also just tragedy and horrible ways to die in general. They
are.
You know, unfortunately, I mean, but I guess that one's not quite the same because only a few people die in tragic ways.
Ideally, you'd die in your sleep at a very old age.
Yeah, ideally. Ideally. But unfortunately, we don't get to choose.
Nope. The clock is ever ticking. Time moves ever forward.
But Kayako chooses how the people die while they don't, so it still continues that like symbolism. I don't know. But it's even though it's a horror movie, it has multiple levels that you can pick apart. And to me, it's an artful like like the way that they have the music, their cinematography for the most part is pretty strong. There's a few choices that I don't know is a cultural thing and what they typically do over there, or if it was like a unique director decision. But there's a few choices that I'm like, I don't know about that one. But
Just something we wouldn't have chosen.
yeah. But anything else you wanted to add on realism?
Not on realism. The last thing I do want to say about this movie is it is definitely worth the watch, but be warned, it is kind of a slow burn.
Which is fairly typical for at least older Asian horror movies. But yeah, I think this is definitely worth at least one watch.
Yeah.
Be prepared to laugh in some of the parts, but I think it's also safe to assume that you'll probably be creeped out by at least a couple of the scenes too.
I do appreciate that they don't have that many jump scares either.
Yes, they
There
don't.
are almost none.
It's a slow burn, and a lot of the scares are silent in the background where you have to be paying attention. And I always appreciate movies that do stuff like that.
Absolutely. It adds so much to the atmosphere. So it really helps.
But I would love to hear, if you guys watch the movie, we want to hear what your favorite scares were.
Yes.
What were the stupidest scare?
What did you laugh at the hardest?
Yeah, ours, I think, at least for me, was the soccer ball that turned into the boy's head. That was just like top notch, like hilarity.
That was great.
I mean,
I don't know, the face on the ceiling with all the hair spread out everywhere. I laughed pretty good at that too.
Yeah, there was a few, but the soccer ball head that got it for me for sure. And well, since we're more than likely going to continue with the Ju-on reviews, let us know what your favorite Ju-on movie is. Hopefully we'll be covering more in the near future. Well, especially since we have the English ones. We don't cover those during Asian Horror Month. And I guess I should, for any new listener that has not listened to Asian Horror Month, the whole purpose of Asian Horror Month is we only watch the original films. So if there's a English adaptation, we might do that at a later month, but we're not going to cover it in this month.
Or as a bonus.
We really want to celebrate the original films because I feel like a lot of horror fans don't tend to talk about these types of films. They're kind of forgotten about, whether that be because, you know, it's a foreign film, so they don't want to like read the subtitles, or they feel like they won't understand like the cultural differences. And I mean, with some of the films, you do get a little bit of
There are
that.
some, but not quite as many as you would think.
Yeah, and I feel like even if it's a film that you don't understand a lot of that film because of the type of culture, you can still get something out of it.
It's a way for us to branch out and see different points of view and different methods of horror.
Yeah.
And no one does it like the Asian cultures.
Yeah, and I think that's why we gravitate towards Asian horror films versus like European, because even though those are technically foreign films, it's, you know, we're both Caucasian, so there's still similarities in European culture versus, you know, American culture, but a lot
It's
of
just not the same.
yeah, it's like Asian culture tends to be, I mean, it depends on the country, but there's a lot of differences. There's just celebrating those differences and acknowledging that despite the differences, it's still a good movie.
Yes. And you learn something new usually, so
Yeah, so it's a good way to expand and learn about other cultures. And if you guys haven't checked out any Asian horror movies before, we have a list of all of the ones that we've covered, and we definitely encourage you to watch those movies.
absolutely. There's some real gems in there.
Yes, like Gonjiam.
Oh, I was just thinking about Gonjiam. I love that one.
That one's a newer one too. So
It was a newer one, so the effects are a little better, and they got some good scares in that one.
yep.
So don't forget to check those other ones out as well, guys.
Yep.
All right. You got anything else?
Nope, just if you like Asian horror movies, please like and subscribe and share this with a friend so we can hopefully spread the word and try and I think, you know, in the past couple of years, Asian horror movies have become a little bit more mainstream, especially with the English remakes, but it'd be really cool to make the originals.
Yes. Well, it also helps that a lot of other platforms like Netflix or Prime are making them more accessible.
Yeah.
Even to us over here. Because there for the longest time they would be blocked. Certain movies would be blocked in your country. So now that a lot of those kinds of movies are more accessible, it's easier for more people to actually watch them and get to experience the different cultures and the different kind of spooks. So,
and don't watch the dub. Watch the subtitle.
Watch the dub.
Watch the subtitled version. Don't watch the dub. The
I
dub.
know there's reading. I know there's reading. It's not that bad. Bear with it. There's actually, I feel like there's more that gets lost in translation in the dub versus subtitles.
Yeah, because the dub actor, they're just guessing. And a lot of times they almost put themselves in that scene and act the way that they would. While if you watch the subtitled version, you still get the raw, what was supposed to be the, you know, that actor's portrayal of the...
I also find it really distracting hearing a voice that clearly doesn't belong to that actor or actress. Like, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's way more distracting to me than subtitles ever will be.
Yeah, I agree.
But I do appreciate that a lot more of these kinds of films are more accessible to the public.
Yep.
So
But
it helps. It's really nice.
yep. So
All right, guys. Well, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, of course. Share our stuff with a friend. It really, really helps, and we get so much joy out of seeing more people join us in the discussion and read the comments and everything. We tend to fangirl over comments more than anyone. So don't forget to comment. And we do have a live stream on the first Saturday of each month. Of course, if we move it at any point due to a holiday or whatever, we do let everybody know. We just had our Phasmophobia, or will have. What year is it?
I think.
Phasmophobia live stream is around here. And we're looking at... It's going to be at Dead of Night or a new one.
Yep.
So don't forget to join us in September, the first Saturday in September at 7 p.m. for the live stream. We will have an announcement on what game we'll be playing then. And until then, guys, stay safe and stay spoopy. Bye!
Bye.